Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the final session of Litmus Live today. I am so excited about this one because I think we're going to end on a really awesome note, because this is going to hit the core of a lot of folks on the session. So we're seeing a little bit of a shift in titles, responsibilities, typically associated with email designers, developers, and email marketing managers. In this year's State of Email survey that we ran at Litmus, more than half of respondents described their job level as either senior level contributors or managers, with top level responsibilities being email strategy planning, followed by email development and program management. And many of the job titles that people put in the survey often included words that wasn't email marketing. It was terms like CRM, lifecycle, growth, operations, demand generation, and even customer marketing. And another little bit of a kind of an interesting tidbit from the survey: over a quarter of respondents said the email developer responsibility the email developer was actually responsible for implementing email personalization, which I thought was super interesting too. But to help me decipher what exactly is going on with the email industry right now and the people that are in it, I'm joined by three awesome experts who've all carved their own careers in email marketing. And I have some really fun, maybe spicy things to say about the evolution of email marketing roles. So let's introduce ourselves. Karen, do you want to start?
Hello, I am Karen Slater. I am the manager of Lifecycle email marketing at Litmus. Okay, you guys fight over who's going next.
Go, Leah, go.
I'm Leah. I lead the Lifecycle marketing team at Zapier.
And I'm Jay. I'm the head of development at ActionRocket, a CRM agency based in the UK.
Awesome. So let's start at the beginning with all of us here. Where did your career in email marketing start? And Karen, because you introduced yourself first, let's start with you.
Hey, I started as I didn't know what I wanted to do. I started as a graphic designer. I thought that I wanted to do for print, and then I realized that's really boring. No offense to anybody who does print, but for me, it was very boring. I liked the movable part of the web and how there's tons of different states and you have to account for all of that. And it was just very interesting. And then there was an opening in the email marketing in the marketing section for email and landing page creation. And I was like, I don't actually know what I'm doing, but I'll try it. And I had been coding forever. Yay, Angel Fire and all of the wonderful beginnings of the webs. So a big part of it was the idea that there was another person who was also involved, and they would say, can you do this in email? And she'd say no. And I would say, well, maybe, I don't know. And then I'd go and find out that you could, and I'd figure out how to do it. And that was how I started.
Sounds a little similar to me. I started as a web developer who happened to do email as part of their job. I feel like that was the standard way back then. But Jay, how about you? Where did you start in email marketing?
So I was head of just marketing for a few companies. So global marketing, community marketing, all that kind of thing. I went to physical events, planned all that stuff, did all that stuff. And then I was working for an e-commerce brand, and they had a really bad website. And every time we had to create something, we kind of had to do something random with HTML to get it to work. So I started learning HTML and CSS that way. And then we started to send emails, and we were using just like Campaign Monitor, the drag and drop tool. And I wanted to do more. And so I just started tinkering. So looked at some other people's emails, looked at some code that was around, had a good look around, tried to figure out what was going on. And I got bored of marketing and was like, I want to be a developer and I want to do email development. And I joined the Email Geek Slack group. And then Elliot from Taxi for Email and ActionRocket said, he was like, does anyone we're kind of thinking about expanding the company. Does anyone want a job? And I was like, yeah, I'll come in. And I could just about kind of put a table together and get it to work. And he let me on as a junior developer. So I started there and then worked my way up. So yeah, bit of a whirlwind.
So Leah, was yours as much of a whirlwind start as Karen's and Jay's?
A little bit. So I'm dressed as what I went to school for. I was going to be a history teacher, and I did that for about a year. And then 2008 happened. I won't go into an economics lesson. And I had to find a job. And I was like, well, I like to talk to people. So I landed in event marketing. And I was great. I was a 20-year-old. They gave me like this huge trailer to go to like car show events. And yeah, we were collecting name, phone number, email on my little clipboard. And I went to my boss and was like, hey, like, what are we doing with these things called emails? Like, it still had the dash. That's how old I am. And he's like, I don't know. Do you want to do something with them? And I was like, yeah. So I was like, how to email people. I started out just doing one-to-one email, and then I found MailChimp. If you haven't looked at their 2008 website, it's amazing. Go check it out. And yeah, that's pretty much how I started, and I really fell in love with it. And then I was like, well, I wonder what's happening behind the scenes. I wonder if what's this code look like? And I fell in love with it. I got really excited about it. I think I first coded a unordered list. Thank you. I was so excited about it. And I was like, I'm Hackers. I'm the movie Hackers right now as I'm coding this. And then, I went and looked for email jobs, and I ended up finding a company to take a chance on me. And I realized I didn't know as much about coding as I thought I did in the interview. And so I had to real quickly learn how to, I think coding three rows were a big thing for me. And I was like, okay, once I got that, I was like, this is what I want to do. This is the life.
I love how many throwbacks we managed to squeeze in there. We had Angel Fire, we had Hackers, we had MailChimp from back in 2000 something. Like this was a good sense of how long ago we all started out in our email marketing careers as well. But it's super interesting that all three of you, maybe all four of us really, we all got our gateway into email marketing through email development. Why do you think that is? And whoever wants to jump in first can jump in first here.
It's the puzzle.
Yeah,
is 100% the puzzles. Email development is not web development. Figuring out how to make things work in email clients is like, it just ticked that box in my brain, and it was like, oh wait, I can make it do this on this, and I can make it do this on this. And that was 100%. I loved the puzzles of email development. That's what got me into it.
It's that red rag to a bull, right? Can't do that in email. Yes, I can. I can definitely do that in email. Let me just go away and figure out how to do it, and it will happen. So, yeah, definitely.
I mean, same. I ended up taking like a front end development and, JavaScript and all that fun stuff. And then I really got scared about like developing with other people. And I love that email development can kind of be, it's controlled. That makes me sound like not a team player. I promise I work well with the team. But especially like when you're learning to code, it's kind of scary to like share your code with other people. And yeah, I absolutely loved it. And I loved coding for Outlook. I know that sounds like a really hot take, but it stretches you and you think like, this is great. This is mint. Let's test it. And it's like, whew, we are not there yet. And I think solving Outlook and like getting rid of white lines was just the thing that kept me going.
I had an email. Well, I worked for pharma for a long time, and they very much, everything has to look the same. Doesn't matter where it is. So there's a lot of like figuring out how to do something so it works on Outlook. And then one of the first emails I built at Litmus had a button that you like hovered over it, and it had a button shadow behind it. And I was like, okay, cool. It'll be interactive. And then on Outlook, we'll do it with some VML, which don't do VML now because it's not accessible, but at the time that was what we did. And I remember it was one of the first times I talked to Jay. He was like, how did you do that? And I was like, I don't know, I just did it. This is what I do.
Yeah, and the whole like everyone shares everything in the email community as well, so it's really nice like that. So then like I would figure out what Karen did, and then I would build on it a little bit and then share something, and then someone else would share something else, and then someone would come from right field with something totally random, and then everyone would be like, whoa, how did you do that? And then we'd all do the same geek out for ages. And definitely, so that's another part of it, I think, is the community of everyone kind of helps each other with that email development. Definitely kept me in it a bit longer.
I like seeing people discover the things that I discovered already. I'm like, yes, see, that's why I'm here.
Everyone's got having their own little light bulb moments. I think I started doing web development and I started building websites using tables. So tables were my comfort area. That was my safe zone. So when I knew email development was just on like, you had to be able to use tables, like, oh, this is my space. I can do this. So I'm glad I've kind of moved away from email development when like the table era of email developers sort of going in our rearview mirror as well. But like, so this kind of pulls me towards another question that I had in my mind. Leah, Karen, you have moved away from email development, and Jay, you have kind of really stayed and like probably gone even deeper into it. What pulled you away, Leah, Karen, from email development?
Hey, you want to go first?
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of joked when we were all meeting that it was kind of like it just slowly got boiled, and I woke up a lifecycle marketing manager. But I think it really came down to, I'd get the copy, I'd get the design, and, I'd start coding things, but I'm like, oh, I wish we would have done something else. And then, I'd end up going to the designer and be like, hey, what if we did this? And to the copywriter and like, oh, what if we did this? And found that I really love kind of being part of that strategy and seeing kind of like, not just like the end product, but like, where do we want to go on this map? And that's what really, not really drew me away from email development, but enticed me to go just a little bit further up the process, which honestly, I really love, because I know we're probably going to touch on this, but when you are an email developer, I think we all have that passion for that customer, and we want to like give them the best experience. We all respect the inbox so much. And it's like, how can we, show that respect and that love and that care? And, when you get something at the end of the kind of like process, you don't really have that ability to influence it. And so that's really kind of what tempted me away.
That's 100% the same for me. As an email developer, you get to see what you can do in email. And by the time the emails got to me, I felt like I was like, I want to do more. Like, we can do more. Why are we not doing more? And so like raising my hand sooner and getting involved earlier was always something that part of why I went to Litmus is because the environment was great. And they were like, yeah, sure, share your opinions. And it was a great way to be able to get involved with the email earlier. And the more I did that, the more I'm like, oh, let's test this. Let's do that. Let's figure out how to make a whole onboarding thing and incorporate all of the fun things that I know we can do in email. I didn't want to learn how to do JavaScript. That's it.
I can feel that. Leah or Karen, I don't know if you both want to answer this or one of you wants to answer this, but what advice could you offer email developers right now who sort of in that position that you were once, about like how they can raise their hand in a situation where they know that they can do something, you can do something better? Like, what advice would you give email developers right now to be able to like empower themselves to help them make those decisions and raise their hands?
Ooh. For me, like Karen mentioned, of like, oh, we could do this to make it better. And I think sometimes like your content peeps or your designers might not be aware of your abilities. And I think raising your hand to say like, hey, did you know we could do this? And even like building like proof of concept, or saying like, hey, Jay mentioned of like sharing code of like, we saw this, we could do something like this. I think is a great gateway to kind of be brought into that conversation, because sometimes, they just don't realize what they can do in email, and they're not thinking that way. And I think that's where if like you're an email developer, you have that insight knowledge, showcase it. And that's how I would approach it.
I think Jay mentioned yesterday, like using ways to use AI in order to free up your time so that you have time to research those things. And I know when I first started, one of the things Lily and I we would have a shared folder in Litmus, and I would build something and be like, look at what I can do. And that way she could see how it would fit into an email and like because I would send her like CSS tricks, and those are webs. So it's not necessary. It wasn't a one-to-one. So I'd see something cool, figure out how to do it in email, and then send it to her and be like, look at what we can do. So making sure you have that good relationship with the designer or a copywriter, whoever is there, and raising your hand. Like by the time it gets to you, it's too late. So do it when you have time, use AI to help give yourself some time, and then make sure that you can raise your hand, say, hey, did you know? Because yeah.
Those 3 words can be so helpful. So Jay, you probably kind of touched on this a little bit in your session previously in Litmus Live. So what's kept you in email development where Leah and Kara have moved away from it?
I think I'm in a slightly different environment at an agency, so that kind of helps from not. So if you're brand side, I guess you're working on the same similar kind of topics, etc. Whereas I just have so many different clients and so many different things going on all the time. It's very difficult to get bored. And also, like, you find something new, share it, and then we've got quite a few clients that let us practice, try new things, do new stuff. And then internally at ActionRocket, like with Email Weekly, we can kind of build our own stuff. So being able to make cool stuff all the time definitely keeps you there. But also previously as a marketer, I hated that marketing never ended. So I was always the next project, the next quarter, the next reporting, the next thing. And the thing about email development is once you've made it and it's sent, that's it. Like, I can't do anything else about it. It's gone. I've done all my best work up to that point, and that's kept me kind of happy that things end. I'm happy that happens. Yeah.
I saw both Leah and Karen just like nodding away when you said that.
That was a bit of a reaction, like, oh no, you just described the daily life. Yeah, that is the downside of the lifecycle marketing lifestyle. I'm going to be honest.
It is. And it's kind of like, you raise a really good point there, Jay, about you being on the agency side of things. Leah, Karen, you're on the brand kind of in-house side of things. That seems to be like one of the differentiating factors, like you said, that have the kind of base the direction on like which you've taken. Are there any other driving forces you can think of that could be kind of helping evolve the email marketing role a little bit?
So I guess I covered a lot in the talk yesterday, but like there's so much more to what we do as an email development team, or what we now call CRM development team, in creating so many different things. So we used to do designs to HTML, give to the client, forget about it, never doing anything else. Now we're much more involved with segmentation, localization, because we can get involved really early on in the briefing stage. We can talk to strategy, copywriters, design, come up with all of them things, concepts, brainstorm stuff with them, and then things trickle down to us, and then we can work on it. And then also, like, we just do so much more development. So building tools to help people do stuff, integrating with WYSIWYG editors, drag and drop builders, how to work with an ESP, API hookups, web hookup, that kind of thing. So we're doing all of that work around, as well as just doing a bit of HTML and CSS. So we know that email, HTML and CSS really, really well. So we're good at that, but we know that there's so many more things you need to do now as an email developer. So that's kind of how it's kind of spread out. And then we apply the knowledge that we've learned from all of that HTML and CSS and accessibility to all the other projects we do. So the web projects that push the in-app messaging, all that kind of stuff. So I guess I'm not really, I am an email developer, but we're a CRM developer who covers everything and does everything that they need to make email work. So yeah, there's loads more moving parts to it that keeps me interested. I'm not just sitting down writing HTML and CSS every day from a Photoshop file or a Figma file or something.
I really love what you're kind of talking about there, Jay, as well. Like, you are pushing the perception of what an email developer is seen as doing. And I think you even kind of a little bit of a spoiler alert for those folks who weren't in Jay's session earlier this week, but the idea that email developers should feel okay about using things like AI to help them with very basic like code things that AI can help them do in a pinch, so that they can spend their time elsewhere on like localization and trying to figure out your data and like doing the more technical things that will help elevate you as an email developer, versus just seeing yourself as someone who is there to build emails and make those emails look great in every single email client. Like, there is so much more knowledge that you can offer. And I really love what you're doing there for like email developers everywhere, and like pushing email developers to think beyond building emails.
Yeah, and I know I saw a few things in the chat that people are like, oh my God, AI, they're going to do stuff. Like, AI, when used in the way that I'm talking about, is, as Karen said, like, if you get AI to do those day-to-day emails with the components, modules you've build it really quick, and you do like your business as usual emails in half a day, that gives you half a day to play with stuff, and you can work on that more experienced stuff, and you can do that stuff that AI can't do yet. And then you can take that away as well. And you can do it to use it for other things as well, like meeting summaries, writing briefs, doing those reports, things like you don't have to sit there and physically do that all the time. So let AI do that if it can do, and use the other tools like, Figma to HTML tools or anything like that to make your life easier, so that you can spend time learning other stuff, or niching down and really getting to know your ESP or something like that, and really become the expert in that kind of part of it.
Leah, Karen, anything else you'd like to offer on, like, what are the driving forces around email marketing role evolution?
I think part of the thing that happens with email marketing period is we've gotten so used to wearing so many hats. So even though I would consider myself an email developer, there was a ton of stuff that I needed to do elsewhere. Like, I had to know how to reporting. You had to keep an eye on your audience to know what you're building for. You had, like, there's so much peripherally. Nope, not going to say that word. That you had to know that it kind of opens you up. And the more you dive into email, the more you dive into email, the more you find how it branches out. And then you find the one that sparks your interest. And the puzzle that's the puzzle that makes you interesting. Just keep following that path. There is so much to email. And like, I feel like email is opening up. It's not, yes, there's email, but I mean, like, Leah and I are both Lifecycle. We have to think about not just email, but also how email fits in with SaaS or SMS, and how email fits in with in-app messaging, and so that you're having a whole conversation with your customer. You're not just throwing emails at them and hoping something sticks.
Yeah, I think the curious nature of email marketers, and that puzzle, that curious nature, Karen made a really great point as we were prepping for this, in the idea of people who are successful as email marketers, if they see a problem, they attack it. They go and they figure out how to solve it, whether it's by themselves or reaching out to the community. And I think with that mindset, we just naturally sort of ballooned our scope, because, when we were building, it's like, okay, we're coding, but like, what makes a good design? I would go to our designers and be like, okay, can you actually show me how to do that? With our content folks, it's like, okay, subject line, we should be in this character count. And then working with them to be like, okay, how do we make this great within the confines of, the scope of what we can do? And when you start doing that and getting that understanding, you start having opinions about what we should be doing. And with that comes like that greater responsibility. And so, yeah, I think we kind of did it to ourselves, that we're seeing like the email marketer like go away. But I think it's great, and we need it to happen, because it shows the breadth of what most of these email marketers, in my opinion, have been bringing to the table for years. We really like said, okay, you do email, and it's like, no, we do so much more. So yeah, I'm excited that the name has changed. I'm a little sad that email went away from my like LinkedIn title. Sure. But yeah, I think it's a great evolution to show the breadth of work.
I think I was going to say, one thing I'm scared about is, like, as someone who's new to the industry, one of the first things I was looking for was like email developer. And it's like, if you're coming in, what do you look for? And I think knowing, okay, CML, I cannot talk today, but being a CMR developer, or being a lifecycle marketer, like digital, what was another one I saw the other day? Like a digital marketing person is like, okay, but how do we get that out there for people to know when they're new, when they're coming into it? It's like, yes, you do it, but here's what you're doing. It's bigger than just email development, I promise you. It's bigger than just email marketing.
There's a wealth of opportunity out there, and we've got a few minutes left, so I want to make sure we get this question in. But it wouldn't be a closing panel if there wasn't some sort of crystal ball prophesizing of what's to come in the future. So where do you think email marketing related job titles are going to be in the next 5 to 10 years? If we're already seeing lifecycle marketing managers, CRM developers, like, where do we see it going? Is this trajectory that we're going to be seeing?
I think developers are definitely going to be, I think we're going to have to be like it's going to have to be something like CRM or lifecycle developer or something like that, because yeah, we're working across so many things now. We're working across so many different languages. We're doing the HTML and CSS, but we're doing the JavaScript here, the personalization there, that kind of thing. So it's definitely a more diverse development role. but I don't think web developers will ever come into the CRM development space. So it's definitely going to be our own, but we just need to figure out, what it's going to be called. I'm betting on CRM developer, but yeah, we'll see.
I say operations. I feel like I hear a lot of operations, and I don't know. It could go either way. But yeah, I like Lifecycle. I like Lifecycle. It's a holistic approach. I'm hoping that keeps going in that direction.
I think what will be interesting is to see Lifecycle, and even in my role, I work a lot with our sales team and do, ABX and ABM campaigns, and that Lifecycle demand gen, I feel like we're starting to get like really close. We're roommates, we're in the same house at least. So I think that's something it's coming. So I think if you're a Lifecycle marketer, I think getting, up to date on, ABM, demand generation, not so much paid ads side of demand gen, but, working closely with sales, I think that is going to help like future-proof our work. I think what's interesting is maybe not the titles, but where we end up living. So in my previous role, I had Lifecycle operations is kind of what I had. So I actually lived in marketing operations, even though we were doing, email strategy and the full lifecycle in-app messaging. But because a lot of the work that I did was like actually setting the campaigns up in Marketo and making sure that, the leads were getting over to Salesforce the way that they needed to. So I think that's kind of an interesting side, versus I've also seen Lifecycle living in content and like under the content org. So I think that those are two places that I'm curious to see kind of where they develop, and does it end up like taking two separate paths and, both needing to exist.
Yeah, and I can also see that being like from a lifecycle perspective, it's more than just the customer journey. It's like the full life cycle, because they'll get to that loyalty stage and they may just fall off the cycle. You need to come back around. So like awareness and brand awareness is like a huge part of that too. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what the future lies for the email marketing role. But I will say for certain, it feels like email as a channel is not going anywhere. So if you are learning email, if you're an email developer, if you're an email marketing manager right now, I feel like your potential is enormous for where you can go. So thank you so much, Jay, Leah, Karen, for all of your thoughts right now, and for joining us in this last session. But I just need to wrap things up because it is that time now. Thank you so much to everyone who has joined us for Litmus Live 2024. Thank you to our wonderful sponsors, Salesforce, Oracle, Constant Contact, OneSignal, and Zero Bounce for joining us this week, and our keynote speakers, Anne Handley and Kath Pei. And also, I've got to thank every single one of members of the Litmus staff who have been busy behind the scenes over the last 4 days, keeping the train on the tracks. It's been an honor to be a part of that team. And above all, thank you all for joining in. It wouldn't be a Litmus Live if it wasn't for the email marketing community. So thank you so much for joining in. The Slack channel is going to stay open until 7th of November, so feel free to keep the conversations going on in there, and find your peeps outside of Slack before we close it down in there completely. And the recordings will be available on the Attendee Hub until the end of the year, so feel free to grab those recordings when you want them. But thank you so much for joining in. Have a lovely rest of your day, and we will see you around. Bye.